You, the fan base, if you would have voted, we've seen some of you that have mentioned what you would do at 1 or whatever. But it took time. We mentioned that. Paul was busy for 31 days, and so he didn't do the preseason media poll. 32 days. I forgot that extra half day when he flew back to get on Texas time. But had you done one, I did mine. I published it, and then also the young studs we have, a part of 365 Sports, to put it up on a reel, like 14, 13, 12, and counting down. And I did not know, and the response I got was, for the most part, maybe 1 or 2 that were like, you're a little bit low with so-and-so. I think Oklahoma State, like Barry Campbell, thought I had them too low. But here is the preseason poll on our right. Thank you, Garrett. Number 1, and let's go through the 14, and then we'll go back, pick and choose how we discuss it. Number 1, Texas. Kansas State 2. Number 3, Oklahoma. Texas Tech is 4. TCU and Baylor 5 and 6. Followed by Oklahoma State, UCF, Kansas, Iowa State, Brigham Young, Houston, Cincinnati, and West Virginia. The same 5 or 6. I had 1 through 6 the same. I had 8 and 9, or 7 and 8 flipped. I had Kansas 10. I had Iowa State 11, Brigham Young 9, and then the other 3 I did have in some particular order: Houston, Cincinnati, West Virginia. So maybe it does make sense, although to me it was a very difficult thing to do. And I'm glad I did it now, and interesting to see the results today.
Yeah, I don't disagree with the bottom 3 at all. I'm curious to see. BYU has a veteran quarterback in Keaton Slovis, but he's bounced around, so they're hoping this is finally the spot where he can kind of flourish, and maybe the offense built around him will allow him to do that. And we talked about this a little bit last week when we did this. I think 6 might be a little high for Baylor. I just have to see this group together win games in tight spots to put them that high. I'm not going to put them lower than 8, but 6th is about my ceiling on Baylor, and 9 would probably be about my floor. But I just need to see something more from them. And TCU at 5 makes a lot of sense. I mean, they're going to have probably 9 to 10 new offensive starters, although the offense will probably hum well along given the system. But still, you got to establish some chemistry and time and all that. So most of it I feel pretty good with. And look, this might be the last time for a few years that Texas is going to be picked to win a league. And not because they may not be good when they get to the SEC, but they might not be good enough to be better than Georgia or Tennessee or Alabama, or the teams that are on top of that league right now. So that remains to be seen. But if they've ever had a chance in the last decade to win the Big 12, this is clearly the best one.
Might be the last time Oklahoma was picked as high as 3 for a little while, too, if you really think about it. Maybe not, but there's certainly as much of a chance of that, I think, when you look at the league and, who they'll be contending with. It's been pretty much a layup to be 1 or 2 or 3, on a down year. But, I think that, that's going to be interesting for both teams to see is where they kind of fall, because they pretty much just popped up in the top, part of the league pretty much, I would think, almost every year. Oklahoma certainly for the longest time was your pretty much automatic number 1 to put up there. So interesting to see, just the amount of teams for the first time. It's so big league compared to what you've been dealing with just 10 teams where it's just kind of dot, and you're done. And now you got 4 more who there's a lot of unknowns about to try and fit in and see, where exactly they mesh versus others. It was a fun exercise to do, and I'm sure it'll become easier, as we get more acquainted with those teams. But I think the most interesting thing to me off top is you've got 6 teams receiving a first-place vote. Mm-hmm. I mean, Texas clearing away the top vote getter, which I agree with because I had Texas number 1 as well. K-State, Oklahoma, I think you can see the arguments obviously for K-State and for Oklahoma as well. I mean, they lost a bunch of close games last year. They had some, injury issue there with Dylan Gabriel at, more than one occasion. It gets hurt in the TCU game. Maybe that doesn't change anything. The Texas game, I mean, the game would have been closer than 49-0. I mean, he would have done more than Davis Bevel did in that game. It doesn't get hurt in the Texas Tech overtime. Maybe they win that game. And you look at it, and it's like, and I wrote about this today, like they're not that far away from winning 9 games last year. if like a couple of things go differently for them. So it's not like, I mean, it was an historically bad season from the standpoint of it was the worst one they'd had in over 20 years, but it was nothing compared to most teams' worst seasons, and it wasn't that far off from being a little bit of a down, but not much of one, right? So I do think if you want to believe that with some retooling this offseason, they can bounce back and just have a little bit better luck and be okay, then they could compete for the top because they certainly got some good coaching and good talent. Texas Tech, I know there's a lot of love for them right now, and I don't buy them as a sleeper at this point. I mean, they've been talked about way too much to be a sleeper, but I know they still are somewhat of an underdog compared to the three listed above them. But, yeah, I don't have any surprises that they've been mentioned. TCU, I think a very good chance that they could just roll on along. And, and then Oklahoma State's kind of a surprise there.
Which of the ones to you are too low? Well, you said Oklahoma State's a surprise. You think they should be lower?
No, I think it's surprising that somebody voted them first place.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Wet Blanket brought that up, I think, or somebody did. Oklahoma State with the first place vote.
Sorry, I was just trying to get through all the first place teams, and like I said, there's a number of them. There's 6 teams that got first place votes, so I just found that most interesting. I don't know if that's ever happened.
I'm not sure if that's ever happened. So I then just put in the chat room, you know who won the conference? Kansas State was voted 5th last year. TCU played for the national championship. They were 7th last year. And if you look back at Baylor in 2021, very similar. Baylor, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State were 1, 2, and 3. Texas was 4. That's kind of about where they ended, where they were. But Baylor, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State might have been the 3 most disappointing teams in the Big 12 last year.
Maybe so. And by the way, on Texas Tech, I don't think Joey McGuire is ever going to sneak up on people. He's a loud guy. Like, you're not going to have a program that's doing as many big and boisterous things as they are and then sneak up on people. They're just going to maybe might be a little underestimated by some, but I think that Tech, I don't think they're a dark horse anymore in that. I agree with Craig. But, the Big 12 is kind of the league of parity right now in that the Pac-12 was like that too last year, where there were a lot of teams that really had a good chance to win the league at different points and, win a game here or there, win a close game, and then you might have a different 2 teams that are in the championship game. In the Big 12 last year, it was no different in that, you had a lot of teams that were in it for a good stretch, and then it thinned towards the, in the last month or so.
Last year, if you look at the preseason poll, which again means nothing other than fodder in its discussion, Baylor, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State did not meet those expectations. Kansas State was above them. Texas was about where they were. Iowa State didn't. They were 6th. West Virginia was 8th. Texas Tech was 9th, and they were obviously in that top 3 or 4 the way they finished the year. And then Kansas was better than number 10. David Williams, as a diehard Longhorn fan, I would still not predict Texas to win the Big 12. Over the past 13 years that UT has not won the Big 12, they were probably the most talented team at least half of those years. I'm not going to
I don't think there's much debate in that. I mean, given their recruiting classes and all of that, I mean, it might turn out different on the draft pick side of things. There might have been others who developed better and put more guys in over time. But, I mean, as far as top to bottom talent level, based on what we're told via the rankings and all of those types of things, absolutely. Oklahoma could maybe be number 1, but they would be at worst 2, at worst 1B. So, that's a very fair point. I think that's hard for people to I think it's a struggle for people to look at it, though. It's like, who's the best team? Well, if all comes together, who's got the team with the most talent, the team with the talent that matches with the coach, and I think they have that. But I know they've had that, like you said, 13 times in the last 13 years, and it hasn't necessarily, worked out in the end. But I don't know. I have less questions about them than I have about anybody else. And I feel like if it is going to be their year, and I'm sure this has been said ad nauseum before too, it really does feel like this is their best chance. It's not a team of destiny. I don't think there's one of those. And if there is, then we'll find out in the season at some point, kind of like TCU or K-State last year. We didn't really know that until the season started. But I do think they have a lot of terrific pieces and an actual belief in what they're doing and some real confidence, not that fake bravado just because of the logo. They've got actual reason to believe, like, no, this thing is actually, like, we got something here, and I just get that feeling from them. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's why I'd roll with them. I roll with them, and the fact that TCU lost a lot, Oklahoma's still in a little bit of a who will they, won't they be back on top? I'm just not quite ready to say it's automatically theirs again. They got the mulligan, and Brent's going to have them back, winning the trophy right away. There's just a few too many questions about others.
All right, so there's the media poll. A lot of you